Greetings, everybody. My name is James. I am from the internet, and today we are going to be talking about manufactured sympathy. Now, for as long as there has been a pandemic, and holy crap, that's like a year and a half now, there has been the lingering specter, the looming question of what happens to the tens of millions of people who can't afford to pay their rent or mortgage because some combination of a pandemic, sickness, state governments, local governments, federal governments conspired to take away their income for a period of time. And while I'm not going to debate the efficacy of public health and why we should have done a full quarantine, what I will say is that there has always been a logical end point to people not being able to work but still being forced to pay their rent or mortgage, and that is mass eviction. So now, once again, since we are coming up on about 1 month till the newest moratorium eventually expires, because again, we've now had 2 consecutive administrations decide to continuously kick the can down the road instead of just abolishing all back rent and all back mortgage and working out a deal with banks and finance companies. This is where we're at. We're kicking the can down the road. So I believe October 5th is the newest end of the newest moratorium. And of course, all of the media outlets, regardless of whether they are digital or cable, and they are local or they are global, continue to crank out pieces begging you to be sympathetic, not for the tens of millions of people who literally got screwed by the system, who are going to become homeless. No, they want you to feel sympathy for the landlords. And every month, as we get closer, they all spit out pieces, and they all look kind of similar. So, what I want to do real quick is look at a new wave of feel some sympathy for the landlord pieces, sort of exploring the entire spectrum of what's out there for ideologies of different publications. Then I'm going to show you the real reason why this is a problem, and then I'm going to hazard a guess as to how it all came to be this way. Here we go! First up on our Please Feel Sorry for the Landlords tour, it's Fox News, who, unsurprisingly, have opted to side with the investor class rather than the working class. I know y'all didn't see this one coming, but of course, in typical Fox News fashion, they've also opted to use this opportunity to poop on Biden because, of course, it's all the demon rat's fault and all the lib turds, and, you know, that's really why we're here, which even they know is bullshit, but again, opportunity presents itself. It's not like Fox is going to avoid it. Ken Blackwell, Biden's eviction moratorium has small landlords on the brink. Will anybody help them? Will anybody think of the landlords? The people who have so much capital that they can afford to own multiple properties, while tens of millions of families in the United States of America cannot even save enough to afford a down payment to buy their first home, mostly because landlords own multiple homes and create false scarcity by buying literally everything that's on the market, thus leaving entry-level homes out of the reach of entry-level home owners. Weird how that happens, huh? Big rental companies can survive this uncertainty, but small property owners who manage a few properties and operate on tight margins simply can't afford the moratorium. But, you know, the working class can, renters can, you know, the people who got put out of work. Surely they can afford the moratorium, or what happens after the moratorium, right? Fox News, that's the thing, right? Those people, they'll mystically be able to come up with $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 in back rent on October 5th? Sure, that seems highly likely. Journalists have uncovered stories like those of Jennifer Collins, who hoped to pay her bills by renting out 3 small condos. Her plan collapsed when one of her tenants refused to pay rent or move out, and Collins is now waiting tables to survive. Quote, "My stomach just starts churning talking about it. I'm nervous. I'm like a deer in the headlights. I am in over my head and I just want to be done with it." Wow, that is a lot of propaganda to unpack from like 3 sentences, but let me see what I can do here. Number one, of course, big rental companies can afford this, but what about small property owners who manage a few properties? Right, that means one person got enough money for a down payment, and rather than buying themselves a house to live in or paying down the house that they do currently live with, they instead opted to buy another house, taking one off the market that, an entry-level family could afford, and then they make a rental out of it. And then, rather than just collecting that rent and using it to pay their bills, well, then they pull the equity out of that place, they get another loan for another mortgage, and they buy yet another place. And pretty soon, you have 3 or 4 small properties that are completely strung together with very little equity, a dream, and a huge promise to a bank that you're going to owe them a shit ton of money. And all investments come with risks, okay? It's not like if you decide to overextend yourself buying stocks because you want to invest in your future and retire and use the dividends from those stocks to pay a few bills, and then the stock market crashes, nobody goes, oh no, what about the stock owners? That doesn't happen because somebody else just buys up your stocks very cheap. It's the same thing that should happen to homes. See, if you have an investment and your investment is extra properties and you can't afford to pay the holding costs and the mortgage costs on those, then you should sell them like you would any other investor. But no. Fox News and all of these other media outlets would have you believe the American dream isn't home ownership. The American dream is owning so many homes that other people pay your bills for you while you don't work. So you'll excuse me if I have very little sympathy for Jennifer Collins and the other people like her who decided to leverage themselves to buy multiple properties to extract wealth from other members of the working class. The fact that she's waiting tables is not lost on me in the irony department, as there is a better than average chance at least one of her tenants were literally paying her bills for her by also waiting tables or working in food service. Oh no, Jennifer had to go out and get a job just like all of her tenants. Oh, yeah, no sympathy. Sorry, Jennifer. Now too many of these small owners are being pushed to the brink. Tenants who are struggling financially in the current crisis deserve our sympathy. But so do landlords who can't collect the rent they need to keep their properties. Many of these landlords are considering taking their properties off the market or selling them because there's no guarantee the Biden administration will end the moratorium in October. If small landlords close up shop, many Americans will struggle to acquire housing because of the already prevalent housing shortage. What? Wait. You do realize that there's a housing shortage because all the landlords bought up all the houses. And if they take all those houses and they put them back on the market, well then, there wouldn't be a housing shortage. These people literally created the problem, and now you want us to feel sorry for them when you suggest that the only way to rectify the problem is the same as the only way they can get out of their financial bind. This is literally a win-win. Good. Fuck these people. Make them sell all their properties. Let their tenants, who are paying $1,500 a month in rent, instead pay $1,200 a month for a mortgage so they can own the place they're living in. Imagine that. Meanwhile, over on CNN, moving target on eviction ban is whiplash for landlords. Now, for those of you who are super fans of this video series, and, well, judging by the viewership numbers, that probably isn't a lot of you, this video cell on the screen right now should look familiar. Because over the last year, I've done 3 or 4 separate videos about this same topic, and every single time when I go to CNN, they have this same video up. This video is over a year old. They just keep repurposing it because it is a poor, middle-aged black woman in the South who's just trying to, live the American dream. And apparently, all of their marketing and test gurus discovered that this video has the best response rate and engenders the most sympathy from the viewing audience, so they keep recycling it just with new copy underneath it. That's right, even over on Normie News on CBS, they're running prime time video pieces with Norah O'Donnell talking about the plight of a poor woman who bought 3 properties to rent them out to people, and then because she wasn't able to collect rent, she became homeless and had to couch surf because she refused to go out and get a job or sell one of her 3 rental properties. But oh no, let's feel sorry for the landlords. Landlords look for an exit amid the eviction moratorium. Oh no, the landlords are looking for an escape. Whatever will they do now that they've bought all the homes out of the local market and then forced would-be buyers back into life of rental, where they have to rent the very houses they were trying to buy from the people whose mortgage they're now paying instead of their own. Oh, why? Why? When Ryan David bought 3 rental properties back in 2017, he expected the $1,000 a month he was pocketing after expenses would be regular sources of income well into his retirement years. Wait, hold on. So Ryan had enough money to buy 3 properties, and then he expected $1,000 a month after expenses, meaning if he hadn't bought those 3 properties, 3 other families would have bought them, and it would have cost them less to pay the mortgage and own it than it would have been for them to pay the rent to Ryan, who would then use their rent to pay for the 3 rental properties that he bought and he had mortgages on. Are you starting to see a pattern here, people? Because I'm trying very hard to spell it out and only be mildly repetitive, because I really need you to understand here that the only thing worse than these fucking ghouls who are buying everything off the market so that you can't afford to buy a house are the ghouls of the investor class who own all these media outlets, who are pushing them to constantly write pieces like this so that the average reader will feel more sympathy for the landlords than they will for the working class people who are about to end up living in their cars. And for the record, the federal government not once but twice has passed somewhere in the neighborhood of $40 billion of money to be paid to both landlords and tenants to avoid this entire fiasco. And unfortunately, what they did, in the esteemable nature of kicking the can down the road and shirking responsibility and putting it on other people, they instead took the money and gave it to all the state governments and then left it up to the states to create programs to get the money into the hands of renters and owners alike. And since then, the states have only distributed 11% of the tens of billions of dollars in rental assistance. Now, why is it that the federal government came up with all this money to save all the landlords and all the renters, and then that money is seemingly just sort of stopped in state houses across the country? Well, I'm glad you asked. In state governments, there are actually more people and more levels of government that programs like this have to pass through than at the federal level. And it's because states are made up of individual counties and townships and different jurisdictions. And the senators and congressional reps in Washington, they know that. And they know the people in their states. And they also know who their constituents are. Let's be honest. In some of these states, the lobby of builders and real estate investors, well, they spend more money at the state level than renters do in trying to maintain the rights of tenants. So in some states, yes, it actually behooves the politicians in those states to make sure this money doesn't go out, because there are investors who also spend money on political campaigns who very much want the mass evictions to happen in October so they can add to their portfolio for pennies on the dollar. So what does this mean for you, the average viewer at home who might be behind on their rent or their mortgage? I encourage you to go to your state government website, and on almost all of them, there is a very large link that shows you where to go to explore what programs are currently set up in your state. A lot of the problem with this is because states were drag-ass purposely. Some of the problem is because people don't know that these programs exist or how to get to them. And again, governments have done a wide range of the job of letting people know that these programs exist, partially because of competency, partially because of purpose. But these programs are out there, and in most states, they're up and running. As to whether or not you can actually get an application in on time and get aid on time, well, that depends on your specific state. But I encourage you to go and find out and apply, because October is going to get very dicey, and it is coming very quickly. And nobody knows if the Biden administration is going to try to kick the can down the road again, or if the Supreme Court is finally going to stomp down their boot heel on the CDC and make the whole thing unconstitutional and force its ending. But at some point, there is going to be a logical conclusion to the last year and a half, which is mass evictions. So please do everything you can to avoid being one of the evicted. And if you have family members, especially elderly family members, maybe people who aren't so internet savvy, give them a hand and help them find those resources as well. Until next time, my name is James. I am from the internet, and I am out. Peace.